What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. This week I'm back for a new video, and this time I have some groove techno, Fenimore. So as usual, you can check the project file in the link in the description if you want it and see all the processing that I've used. Also here you have the 3 different reference tracks that I've used from the artist in case you want to see how it sounds. And of course, thank you guys so much for supporting the channel by liking, subscribing or commenting. Alright, now let's get into it. Okay guys, so I'm gonna show you the kick first. As usual, we're gonna dive into the group. So this is how my kick sounds. So you can hear that it's not only just a kick punch and a rumble, but also an underlying kind of bass tom sounds. And it's very typical from this groove sound. So I'm gonna show you how I did that. Of course, I'm gonna withdraw all of the group processing first, and I'm gonna show you the different layers. So first, there is my kick group, which is basically my kick punch without the processing. And it really comes from kick 3. So I just took this subby sample, so I don't have any layers. I just took the sub here and I started from this to make that clean punch. So I'm gonna first put some saturation to add some character. Of course, a bit too much in volume here, but I'm gonna actually cut it here so I get something punchy, and I clip it just a bit. So this is my sub punch. Now I want something more beefy in the mid-range. So what I do usually for groove tracks is I take a typical 909 kick and I take only the mid part that goes through also some saturation and some EQ, and it's gonna add that punchy effect. So together, when it's put in mono and EQ, I have this punch, and on this punch I'm gonna add lots of processing. But first I'm gonna show you also the rumble. So the rumble without the group processing, it sounds like this. So you can hear that there's a rumble, but there's also some bass sound. For the rumble, I took the FX subverb, so it's from Ableton. What I do here is choose the right pitch so that it fits with my kick. So you can try different pitch, and you can also try different placement to get some different movements. So I chose this one. Of course, I'm adding some amp to saturate a bit more and to boost the low end, and I'm gonna also EQ. So I get something more solid, more compressed. And to that kick rumble, I'm gonna add some bass and tom. So first I have this top tom sound. So it's a 909 sample. I put it through an overdrive. I put some delay to make it more lively. I sidechain and then I EQ because I don't want here some frequencies because I already have my rumble, of course. I'm also having some bass random sounds here. So I took this preset from Ableton, which is just a bass. I put it through a snake and through a chord with some dissonant chords. So I have this little riff, and I just really want the bass notes. Bit of those delay and EQ and reverb to make it more lively also. And it's a bit more lively than just having this rumble. So together with the kick, it sounds like this. I also have this top kick to add back a bit of transients. And then I need to boost the whole thing to get something very heavy and compressed. So what I do here is first adding that saturation that I do a lot, which is the overdrive here on the whole frequency spectrum. So it really glues together the whole thing, it boosts a bit the thing also. Same thing with the drum bass. I don't put it 100% because otherwise it's gonna squash my bass or my rumble. Then I like to define a bit more the sub with some overdrive here, really just in the sub. Just some mild saturation, and here the OTT is doing lots of job. So really compressing the whole thing, trying to balance also the frequencies. Then I do another round, having more tonal balance because it was really just in the sub here, so I needed more high end, more clipping, more limiting, another kind of EQ here. Again, putting back some low mids and some high end, cutting those boxy frequencies until I reach what I want, and final clipping also. And yeah, it just sounds way better when it's more compressed, and you really spend a lot of time to go back and forth between the different layers until you have something that is balanced without too much boxiness, and that sounds powerful. So that's what I did here on all of those layers. So this is my kick, then I just render it to audio, so I get this sound. Just have a final EQ also. And then I have also some kick patterns like this in my track, some breaks, so you can play around with this. And that's how you make this kick. So on top of this kick, I have also some underlying bass sounds. I think it's very typical in groove techno and also in Fenimore's track. I think he's using a lot of conga basses. Some other artists use more toms, but here his signature is more the conga. So I did this pattern here with some congas. And I have also these conga bass. So to make those conga basses, here I have two conga samples that I've layered. I make sure it's in the right frequency so that it's in key with my kick. Usually I don't use an F if my kick is in F because it feels a bit more monotonous. So what I do is I take something in the scale, more like +3 or +5 paired to my kick, and together it's gonna feel more lively. Then those congas are of course going to a bit of processing, some distortion with the amp and the overdrive, a bit of EQ, cut some resonances, delay and reverb to make it more lively, and of course some sidechain so that it don't clash with the kick. Same thing here, together again some EQ so that I get a clean conga. And I have here the same with my bass sound, but this one is generated randomly with Snake. So you can create random patterns here with the gates, with the notes, with the velocities if you want. Also with the chords here to make it more dissonant. You can play also with the pitch. This is what I did here. And then same processing, saturation, EQ, delay, reverb, and sidechain. And together it creates this pattern. So this is my rhythmic bass for the sound. Now the most important element is going to be the weird bass sound. This is how I call it, but I think you can find it in all of the tracks from Fenimore. And basically it's just some bass samples that are going to be make weird with some different kind of effects, and it's going to play them repetitively but also a bit randomly. So it's hard to know exactly how he does that, if he has like a pattern order or he's going to place them randomly. But here what I did is I take this stab bass. So I took chord, snake, dissonant chord, random pattern, random gates, basic FM house bass preset from Ableton, and then I just create weird things with the shifter and with some random pattern. Then I'm just adding the same kind of processing that I did in my bass. But this time I render to audio the sound like this. So for instance, I take this one, and this one I'm just gonna play around with it with different pitches. I can create whatever, different rhythmic patterns. So I just place them randomly, but I still make sure it's in 1/4 of a bar, because it's going to feel more natural with the kick. And everything is going to be playing like a call and answer game with all of the other elements. So the effects and other type of stuff. And here I'm just making sure it feels loud with some OTT again, and just some old reverb, and that's how I made this sound. I have also some other bass weird sound. This time I used another technique, so I took some samples, 3 different samples, bass samples, and again I'm using the shifter, but I'm also using some dissonant chord to create some effects. So without the processing, this is how this sample was sounding. So just a bass sound like this, and then I create some rhythmic patterns like this, but it's gonna feel a bit more weird if I change the pitch, if I add some saturation, and if I play with a shifter. It's way more interesting like this, and also with some delay, it's gonna create this. And you can play around with different kind of notes, different samples here, different shifter pitch, different pitch here also. And again, here, another sample. And these sounds are gonna fill up the track and make the thing really interesting. So that's how I did this bass weird sound. I have a final layer here in my Harmonics, which is the vocal. So here, everything that I've used really makes it more interesting again, because if you start at first, it's just this vocal sample. Like nothing really interesting. So I create something rhythmical with the arpeggiator, and then everything is going to be able to make something more lively. So I have some reverb, I have some autopan, I have also some auto filter, some echo, really lots of echoes. It's really going to transform the sound. And this DS Tantra, which is actually like a bandpass filters with some delay, distortion, and other type of effects. And this is how I build this vocal sound that's gonna pop up during the breakdown. Along with my kick, I have also some percs, which are gonna build the bass line for my track along with the kick. So for instance, I have these percs that play a call and answer. I have also, at the end of 4 bars and the end of 8 bars, some distinctive leitmotifs like this ride. So it's just a ride sample, like a swell, with some long plate reverb. I do the same here with some closed hi-hats. And I think you can find these in some of Fenimore's track. You have really like the underlying Perc sound that plays with the kick, and you have also some things that's gonna mark the end of 2 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars, or whatever, and it's gonna also fill up the track. So next I'm gonna show you the different drums. So also something very typical from Fenimore's track is really this distinctive clap. So I think Fenimore is coming from a house background and is really using those 808 claps, and sometimes it's adding like a little perk that's gonna add some resonancy, and that's what I did here. So basically it's a layering of 3 samples, some 808 clap, like this. So I make it really snappy with some compression. And very short. So I have compression here, and slight reverb, and EQ of course. I have this one here, which really brings the distinctive sound, again with some compression, but really with this precise EQ to make it resonant in this frequency range, and some reverb, and the final 808. That's going to bring more fullness to the sound, and together again with a final compression and a final EQ. That's going to be important so that it resonates here to really make this distinctive sound. So also for my drums, I have lots of hi-hats, some very typical hi-hats that you can find in groove techno. So of course, there's these very typical open hats. So I have some layers first, these 3 layers, which are made of 3 open hat samples from 909s. So this one, very classic. Plate reverb, really important. Compression, EQ. Same thing here. Just something more in the transient, more snappy. And this one, which is going to be more groove, which is a combination of this same sample, but this one is placed just a bit forward with a lower gain, and it's going to bring that rhythm. Also plate reverb, bit of saturation, compression. So together it makes something like this. Then there's some variation, so I can enhance this open hat at some point in the track. You also find that a lot in groove techno with another open hat like this. So it's a way to add some variation. This one is another kind of hi-hat. There's also here a more groovy kind of open hat. This one is interesting because it's not just a straightforward open hat. You have a bit of groove because it's humanized. You have here also a bit of something in the tail that adds something more interesting than just an open hat in the offbeat. But again, same kind of plate reverb, sidechain, EQ. Altogether, it's glued by the compression. I have also some hi-hats. These are made from this loop. You have also this open hat loop. More typical open hat here. Same processing. Straightforward ride, 909 ride, straight from Ableton. So here just lots of EQ to control. You can see it's very harsh. At first you really spend some time to hear and try to cut those resonances. Same plate reverb, same sidechain. And here a final layer, which is a shaker loop. This one is a sample and it really brings also some grooviness to my track. And altogether, just some mixing stuff at the end, slight reverb, sidechain, clipping, and EQ. And that's it for the drums. Final elements, these are the effects. So for the effects, there are 2 types of effects. I have some effects that really comes only at the breakdown to make it more interesting and more intriguing before I release and put the drop. And there's also some effects that are going to fill up the track, play some condenser, and really like make the track very full in the background. So first, for the effects drop, I have those type of stuff. So each time I'm using the same technique, which is basically adding some grain delay to create weird stuff and some echoes and some reverb. So without these effects, you can feel how it's very classic sound. Okay, so bass sound. I can play with the pitch to create different stuff like this, and then I create really completely different textures with some grain delays, with some reverb, distortion, and echo. And you can do that with the same sample to keep it more cohesive, but just changing the pitch or changing one parameter of these effects. Or you can make different effect sound with other kind of samples. For instance, this one, which was really something straightforward at first. But then you put it through some pitch variation, some echo, and you get this sound. You have also this one, same thing, grain delay, pitch variation. I think I rendered it to audio this time, and this one is an impact. Weird sound again. Also kind of pad swell, but I'm using just a pad. Here, some dissonant chords. of scale and lots of reverb, EQ, and everything is sidechain. And finally, I have my effects. So some of them are coming back along with the track. I'm using the same technique: grain delay, filter delays, shifter, and you create those weird sounds. See, without all of these effects, it sounds like this. It's just a random conga. And you get this. And you can play around with those different effects. You can get completely something different. Water sample. Here, Perc, this. Here, another effect sound. I pitch it down. Here, some Perc. Actually, some vocal. And also, yeah, these vocals. So I started from 2 samples. This. I pitch it. I use lots of reverb, open hats, and then I create different variations of this sound. So it's important to keep a few samples to keep cohesive, because otherwise it's gonna have too much random effects and you're gonna lose the soul of the track. But still at the same time adding some variation, so it's the right balance to get. Sometimes it can be hard. And also really listen so that you don't have too much stuff going around, especially in terms of mixing. It's gonna be hard. So really try, experiment, and you will get some interesting sounds from this. Alright guys, so that's it for this track. Thank you guys for the support, and I see you in the next one. Ciao.